Hello and welcome to today's stream. This is an experiment, and today we try to dive into a Chessable course and just review it. And it's the first time, and it's interesting to see how this will go, of course. What we're doing is we are taking a look at Chessable, how it works, what it is, and then open up the course, Everything You Need to Know About Chess by I am Danny Rensch. And then we take a look what it is like and just follow through all the way. It's a free course and it's for beginners. And I think we are ready to start. And sometimes I have to take a look at the chat. I'm on one monitor here, so just checking. Okay, it's working and quite all right. Then we can start. All right, so need to take a look here, and we have Chessable. Chessable is an online website where you have different courses that you can buy, or some are also free. And it's like a book basically, but online, and way more comfortable than real books to me. And I own several courses by now, and I fear I'm more of a collector instead of a finisher. So have to do lots of work here. Okay, so today's course is the Danny Rensch course. It's free, so we go and check the free courses. Here it is, Everything You Need to Know About Chess. So I click on it. And first I have to check what you are seeing. Hold on. Yeah, that's quite all right. Okay. So, I think you have 5 slots free available, and 4 free courses. If you're a basic member, I'm a pro member and can, basically have any free course I'd like. There's no limits to any free slots for free courses. So I'd like to get it free. And yes, you now own this free course. To learn, make sure you study a little bit every day. So Chessable is also very motivational, and I can only recommend highly. Okay, start learning. Okay, here I'd still like to go with the first page, with the course overview page. Course info, here it is. Okay. And basically they tell you what is the course named. It's Everything You Need to Know About Chess. It's a Move Trainer strategy course. Move Trainer is a special technique that basically is about presenting you variations that you have to solve. And if you're able to solve it like real quick, then you have like 3 goes, and if you solved it all correctly, it will present you this variation like at a very late stage. If you do it wrong right away, then you have it presented faster, and that way you get the for you difficult variations very often. So it's more in the short-term memory, and over the repetitional short-term memory it gets into the long-term memory. So basically what you don't know, you are presented way more often until you get it, and stuff that you know right away will be put all the way to the back of your memory cards, as I'd like to say. Okay, so again checking. This is all good, seems to work well, and we are now taking a look what the course is really about. So it's by I am Danny Rensch. It got 4.5 or 4 3/4 Rating, yeah, 4.56 rating average by 366 Chessable users, which is quite good. And now I own it. It's free, of course. I can browse, like take a look what's inside, or learn right away. Here we have an introductional video that we are going to take a look at in a moment. And yeah, what is it? So it's a course. I read through it very, just following the course page here. The definite guide to start playing chess. So this seems to be for people who have no clue, like what is chess. Yeah, and they need to learn it from scratch. So if you're new to chess, this is a crash course. You need to learn all the fundamentals. It's International Master Danny Rensch. Yeah, so you learn by an expert or from an expert. And you can start playing your first games after you went through the course. It won't take long, so let's take a look. It has 3 videos, 1 hour 50 minutes. It has 37 trainable variations, informational variations, puzzles 31. It has been released on November 03, 2023. Support level is very high, so if you have questions, you can within Chessable ask questions. And yeah, it's recommended for novice players and beginner players. So far I have studied none or nothing, and here you get the details what's in the course. Basically it's learning the game, 37 variations, the opening, 12 variations, tactics and strategy, the end game, 14 variations, and bring it all together, 5 variations. Yeah, so with the free video 1 hour 50, I think today's stream is going to take 2.5 hours or so. Yeah, so yeah, what will we learn? The language of chess, how each piece moves, how to play good moves in the opening, basics of tactics, fundamental strategy, how to deliver checkmate. That's all you need to know, basically. Yeah. And yeah, Danny Rensch is chess.com's chief chess officer. Take a look at YouTube and you find lots of videos where he's in, and seems to be a really nice guy. That's all I can say from watching videos. Yeah, don't know him personally, of course. Okay, so I think this is good. You might need to get some information about me. I'm a very mediocre chess player. I think I have a classical rating of 1700 classical on lead chess, and also my blitz rating is about 1700. Yeah, I learned chess many years ago, never really studied, and just have some stints where I'm really into it, learn a lot, and then just put it away for 2-3 years, and only recently I found interest in it again since last November, where I basically on a daily basis try to study chess. Okay, let's take a look if this works again. Looking good. Alrighty, and now hi Quad. And nice that you're watching, and or have been watching. I cannot really take a look at the chat because I only have one monitor. And yeah, let's go. Okay, first it's interesting to see if you can hear the audio, of course. So yeah, I just play the video and we'll see if you're able to hear the video.
Welcome to the Everything You Need to Know About Chess course. This is a super special course near and dear to my heart. Funny story is that this course was actually one of the first major assignments that Eric, founder of Chess.com and CEO, asked me to do when I joined almost 15 years ago now. And the challenge was to take that moment that you have with your friend, with your family member, with anybody who says, hey, I care about chess, I want to get into the game. Teach me a few of the basics.
YouTube is the video.
Teach me a few of the tips that I can use to beat my friends, right? And so this course was designed to take all the knowledge you would need, literally from starting to talk about chess, the terminology, the language used within the game, to how to move the pieces, the basics of all the major stages of opening and middle game and end game, and then ending with a great example that gets that friend, gets that family member excited to go out and try it themselves. A great game that really emphasizes some of the beautiful things that might happen if you play a brilliant chess game yourself. And so that process was done many years ago, and that video series is actually on YouTube, and we didn't know how successful it would be, but it has had the fortune or I guess the gratitude of being able to teach millions of people how to play the game. And with where things have gone with chess content and all the different things that we're now doing for the community, this was our refresh, our revamping, and our maybe upgraded version of that same process. This is the 1 hour chess lesson you could take to make sure that you have all the starting tips, strategies, and basic understanding to really be ready to not just play but win chess games, and maybe even have the courage to give your first chess tournament a try. And so if you're looking for a starter course, you can also skip the parts that maybe you already know how to move the pieces or the language and jump in at a level that's appropriate to you. But I really could not recommend a better story, a better version of how to take your chess knowledge wherever you're at in your beginner's journey to the stage of wanting to play in a chess tournament and getting excited about playing and winning chess games. I can't think of a better way to do it than the way that we've kind of packaged and formatted this content for you. So I really hope you enjoy this series. Can't wait to see you diving in, and we will see you around on chess.com.
Okay, thank you, Danny, for the introduction. And I think you have been able to see it and hear it, but only if I'm not in chat. So let's see. Okay, we see it now. We can hear the video. Okay, that's fine. So basically, if I go into chat, see what's happening, it's not here. So I, from now on, stay out of the chat, only when the video is not running. Okay, so let's get into the course. We click on Learn. Okay, and here we have a nice structure. So basically, are we new to Chessable? Start here. Welcome to Chessable. So what it tells you on the right side, text like in a book. Yeah. So you can read it. Welcome to Chessable. We are glad you're here learning chess with us. Equipped with the Move Trainer and the world's largest chess content library, your chess will know no limits. But what is Move Trainer and how does it work? Watch this short explainer video to find out. I'm happy to take a look at the video. Ah, that's interesting. I think it's the same video. Oh, okay.
Welcome to Chessable, the most powerful chess training platform on the planet. Whether you want to perfect your opening play, sharpen your tactics, deepen your strategic understanding, or polish up your endgame technique, you're in the right place. Chessable has many tools and settings to optimize your chess training, but you only need to know a few basics to get started. The first thing you need to know about is pattern recognition. Pattern recognition is a special ability of the human brain to find patterns and predict in a logical way what will happen next. Move Trainer is Chessable's powerful training algorithm. It helps you build key chess skills. Move Trainer helps you build up a collection of previously seen chess positions in your memory to help you make decisions faster and more accurately when you play. How does Move Trainer help you accomplish this? It'll show you a chess position, and then it'll show you the same position again after increasing periods of time, until you've either memorized the position and/or understand the logic of it. This technique is known as spaced repetition, and it's a learning technique that cognitive scientists have called one of the most effective ways to learn. If you make a mistake during your session, which you undoubtedly will because chess isn't easy, you'll be quizzed on that position again later until you get it right. It is perfectly normal to make mistakes. And in fact, making mistakes will help you improve over time. Once you're finished your training session, Move Trainer will take care of spacing out your next session at the optimal time, so that the gaps in your memory are exposed when you're quizzed again. You may have remembered something in the short term, but there's a chance you will have forgotten something in the long term. And that's what Move Trainer is designed to help prevent. A benefit of training on Chessable is that you can earn points for training moves. This rewards you for the time you're putting into your training. It is a fun and easy way to measure your progress over time. You can also earn special badges by hitting certain targets, such as having 100% accuracy during a session. And you can try and maintain a daily streak to stay consistent. And that's what Chessable is all about. We make chess training more fun, memorable, consistent, and time efficient. You'll learn about some of the basic settings you can use to customize your Chessable experience even further.
Okay, that was a nice explanation, and I think way better than what I tried earlier on. So let's take a short look here. This is all good, and we change back. Okay, so we need to go back to the course and click on Learn. New to Chessable, we did that. This was all right. So we took a look at this and we can continue. Okay, congratulations, hard work pays off. Well, it was not so hard to watch the video. And continue and exit. Okay, so that was the introduction. So we need to click on the course because it was just the introduction. And we go into the next chapter. View is correct. Okay. So here we checked off Welcome to Chessable. Now we have the introduction. And what does it say? It says chess is a fun and beautiful game that everyone can enjoy. What we'll be able to learn, basically, it's the stuff from the first page, or from the introductional page to the course, where we started today's stream with. So I don't need to read that all again and click on continue. Okay, that's fine. And now it's going to learning the game. Okay. So we click on here, but there's a better way. Hold on. Okay, it's learn. Yes, it's on learn, not on review. Okay. So we are now at learning the game and learning the board ranks. Learning the board ranks, squares on a chessboard. Let's see if we have a video about this. Here we have a button, it's toggle video. So
here we have the 6th rank.
Yeah, there it is.
In this case, we would have the 2nd rank. And here the 4th rank. Finally, if we drew an arrow from D4 to H8 and backwards, you would often refer to this diagonal as the A1 to H8 diagonal, naming both the starting and ending squares. Here you would have the F1, A6 diagonal, and so on and so forth. Now we're going to learn how the pieces move. And to start...
Okay, stop. This is kind of interesting because I, of course, would have thought that the ranks are being explained in detail. Yeah, and this is really quick. And he jumped right away to files, diagonals, and then how the pieces move. So we are going to take a look at this in a little bit more detail. So let's see, learning the board ranks. Squares on a chessboard can be divided and understood according to ranks, side to side, which means side to side. Yeah. So files up and down from E1 to E8. Yeah. And diagonals. Ranks, there are 8 ranks on a chessboard numbered from 1 to 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's fine. And we also have 8 files, of course. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Then here we see a lone queen sitting on the 3rd rank. 3rd rank, because this is the 1st rank, 2nd rank, 3rd rank. Okay, and we will learn about Her Highness when we talk about the pieces. For now, to get a better feel for the board, let's try moving her all the way across the 3rd rank to the other side. Quiz white to play. Well, I read what we need to do, so I'm going to do it on the third rank, move it all the way to the other side. Okay, and that's it. The queen shuffles all the way to the side along the third rank. Completed, well done. Next variation. Learning the board, we have the files now. Files are a set of squares that go up and down on the chessboard. There are 8 of them, lettered from A to H. Here queen sits on the D file. Let's move her all the way down to the other side of the D file. Well, it's on D8, and the other side all the way is D1. Okay, again, picking up the queen and dropping it here, and so you see the 8 files, and this was the D file. Okay, Chessable thinks, or Danny thinks, I have the hang of it. The next exercise I will by intention do wrong, so you see how it is in Chessable if you do something wrong. Yeah, and how it takes that. I click on the next variation, learning the board diagonals. There are lots of diagonals of varying sizes on the chessboard. Here the queen sits on the A1, H8. And the fun part in Chessable is, if you go over it, it highlights that square. See, the circle around the queen. And the circle on the H8 square. So here the queen sits on the A1, H8 diagonal, all the dark squares. Let's move her along to the other side, the H8 square. Okay, picking it up, dropping it, and I wanted to do it wrong. I do it in the next one. Sorry, okay. So note that all the squares on the given diagonal must be of the same color, light or dark. Okay, all good. Let's take a quick look at the chat. Okay, that's all good. And also here it's all good. And today is really a beginner's course, and I like it that there are also beginner courses because people need to learn the fundamentals, and that's where it's all building up from. For lots of people, of course, it's very, very boring, especially when they play chess for a long time. But I'm quite interested if I will find something in this course where I say, well, this is new to me, or it's good that I do a repetition. So far, I'm all good. Okay, we have the next variation. What is it? There are 64 squares on a chessboard, each with their own unique letter number coordinate. Let's practice moving a piece to a given square. Let's start by moving the queen to the D5 square. Okay, this is a queen on the G5 square. I need to find the D5 square. Okay, pick it up, and I wanted to do it wrong by intention. So I put it on the E5 instead on the D5. And it tells me it was wrong. Yeah, and it puts it automatically on the correct one. Now I have move queen D5. Nice job. Notice the D5 square sits on the D file and the 5th rank. Okay. Next. And now I need to repeat it because I put it wrongly on E5 instead on D5. And I think it forces me to do this 3 times. So I'm really getting the hang of it. This time I do it correctly because I learned this is correct. Not 3 times, I think. Okay. Now try moving the queen to the A2 square. This is A2. Okay, got it. A2. Yep, most chess pieces can move backwards as well as forwards. Okay, next variation. Let's do one more. Find the F7 square for the queen. This is F7, F7. Got it. Now you understand the basic layout of the chessboard. For my practice on coordinate recognition, check out Vision Drills on chess.com. Okay. So, but as I was still interested in the video, yeah, I again click on it and see what we have.
It makes the most sense to observe the easiest to understand pieces. The rook, sometimes referred to as a castle by beginner chess players, moves only on the straight lines. Welcome to the Everything You Need to Know About Chess video series. Chess is the world's oldest, perhaps greatest strategy game. And whether you're here to watch this video and learn to start playing chess because a friend told you how much fun they're having playing chess, because you saw the Netflix hit series The Queen's Gambit, or any other reason that might have brought you to this great game, this video series is designed to take you from learning the very beginner rules and how the pieces move all the way up to the strategies and tactics that can help you play and perhaps win your first tournament chess games. In this first video, we're going to break down everything from the basic terminology, rules, and fundamental strategies to make sure you're ready to get started, and ultimately give you the advice you need and the courage you desire to play your first chess game. Let's jump in. The terminology of chess is important. Just like any sport, we have certain words we use to describe the game we're playing. When you look at a chessboard, it is a 64-square checkered chessboard rotating from light to dark squares. You can call them white and black, in this case white and green, but we rotate from light to dark. The chessboard is comprised of three major words we use to describe the angles and the movements of which the pieces will play. We have files, which move up and down. We have ranks, which move side to side. And we have diagonals that shoot across the board from one end to the other. In this first case, this would be called the D file, because we notice the letter D is sitting at the top of it, whereas this would be the F file, and so on and so forth. Here we have the 6th rank. In this case, we would have the 2nd rank. And here the 4th rank. Finally, if we drew an arrow from D4 to H8 and backwards, you would often refer to this diagonal as the A1 to H8 diagonal, naming both the starting and ending squares. Here you would have the F1, A6 diagonal, and so on and so forth. Now we're going to learn how the pieces move.
Okay, that was nice. I don't know if you know, but my favorite learning technique is repetition. So I'd like to go through the written information, trying to soak up every info I can get and understanding, and with the exercises, of course, just practicing it right away. And then once that is done, the repetition starts by watching the video. And if I have any questions from the video, I go to the text again and hope that I find it there. And if not, I need to go somewhere else to find out what has been missing. But the courses are in general so good that you don't have to take a special look at additional info. Okay, so we're diving into the pieces now. Meet the rook. Click on it on next variation. And rooks, sometimes incorrectly referred to as castles, due to their shape, are perhaps the easiest piece to understand. Rooks move as far as they'd like, up, down, or side to side, along either ranks or files. Let's see it. Moving in a square from E4 to E8, across to A8, and down to A4 and back over to E4. Okay, let's start. Rook E8, Rook A8, Rook A4, and Rook E4. This is how the rook moves around in straight lines across the board. Up and down and sideways. Okay, so sometimes you just have to click and then click next variation. So this has been completed. Next variation. Let's practice moving the rook up to the C7 square. Okay, C7 is here. Done. It's completed. The rook is a very powerful piece, second only to the queen. Together they make up the major pieces. Next variation. Now we have the bishop. Meet the bishop. It moves only diagonally across one color complex, light or dark. Here we have a light squared bishop. Let's see it moving it along the light squared diagonals. Bishop a4, bishop e8, e8 is here. See, it's only light squares. And we have bishop to f7, which is here. Again, light squared. That's why it's called the light squared bishop. He can only stay on light squares. Not possible for him to go to dark squares. Now to bishop d5. d5 is here. 1, 2. Done. All right. That's the way the bishop moves. And here they say, notice the bishop must stay on the same color complex, in this case light squares, for the entire game. Okay, on to the next task. Let's practice moving the dark squared bishop along one of its favorite diagonals to the e5 square. 1, 2, 3. Done. Next one, we have the queen. Can I click here? Yes. And see, it combines the moves of the bishop and the rook. The queen is the most powerful piece on the board. She has the combined power to move like a bishop and rook, and I'm so happy now, because I didn't read it, but I just remembered it from what I was learning, or had learned many years ago. She has the combined power to move like a bishop and rook, and as far as she likes. Let's see her in action roaming around the board. Queen d4. We are on g4 now. g4, g4. And d4 is here, so the queen is the most powerful piece because of the great number of squares she can control, especially from the middle of the board. Moving like a bishop. Moving like a rook. Up and down, sideways. Okay. Now we have the practice for the queen. And I'm supposed to put it on the a2 square. But first read, every chess piece can move backwards except for pawns, which we will cover soon. Let's move the queen diagonally like a bishop back to the a2 square. a2. Okay, remember the queen can go in any direction she likes, including up and down. 1 queen g1 and side to side 1 queen d8. Okay, like a rook. Okay, good. Then we go to the next variation and we meet the knight. The knight is probably my most hated piece because I so often have trouble with the knight or with my opponent's knight's moves. Okay, what is it? The knight is a little different. It does not move in a straight line like the rest of the pieces. Instead, it moves in an L shape. 2 squares in one direction, followed by 1 square in another adjacent direction. The knight is the only piece you might say can jump over other pieces without capturing or disturbing them. Let's see the knight gallop around a little. Okay, here we have it on e5. And it jumps to knight or to c6. It was 1 step and 2 steps to the side. Another thing would have been 2 steps and 1 step to the side, always in an L shape. It doesn't matter what direction the L was lying around, well, whatever. Okay, so now knight b4 from the c6 file, again an L shape, but it was turned upside down. And now to d3, also an L shape, but this time it was in another direction. Okay, notice the knight can essentially jump over other pieces of either color without capturing or disturbing it. We go back. Here it moves this way, jumps over the pawn, and goes 1 down. Okay, now knight to e5. Where is e5? Here it is, dark square. Jump. Knights are considered the most tricky piece because of its unique moving pattern. And see, it can go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares. And it can only go to a different colored square. There's no chance that a knight on a black square goes on another black square. Not possible. Okay. That was the knight. And now practice. This piece takes the most practice getting used to. Let's move the knight up to c6 in its signature L shape. So I am on d4. I need to go to c6. Where is c6? Here it is. So I could either go 1 to the left and 2 up, which is a perfect L, or I take the upside down L, which is 1, 2 up and 1 to the side. Okay, and that's good. And from this square, the knight can jump to 8 different squares, all dark. Let's see them. Okay, I think jumping around this way is not so efficient. I like this way better, which shows them all in one. Good. Then we meet the king. It's called the Majesty. The king moves 1 square in any direction he wishes, up or down, side to side, or diagonally. While it controls every square around it, its limited mobility makes it substantially less powerful than his royal counterpart, the queen. Let's see how he moves. He is on e4 now, e4, okay, and he can move to e5, e5. From there to d6, king to d5, king c4, king d4. So it can only move 1 square into any direction. And that's it. Okay. For now, I'm going to check the chat again. Okay, and I have one very interesting thing to say, and I think that Jurica is in the chat observing this, and he's busy with something else, but jumping in from time to time in the chat. And I'm so happy that my first idea was that Jurica and I do these Chessable Course Reviews together, for you get the point of view of a master and of a beginner or more advanced chess player. And this would have been so boring for him, I believe, like really, really boring. I mean, for me, it's kind of interesting because I try to find something that I don't know. Yeah, but, and I think I have a chance that there's something that I don't know. But for you, it must just be plain, well, hell is too much probably, but it must be super, super boring to go through all the basic fundamentals for a master. Yeah, so let's continue with the course and the practice for the king. Let's see the king step 1 square to the side to the e3 square. Okay, he can move any square adjacent to the place where he stands. So e3 is this one here. I can move it, and I got it right. The king can move 1 square in any direction, like so. King e2, king f2, and f4. Why to f4? Because he was standing on e3. Yeah, and these are all moves he can go to, or squares he can go to from the e3 square. So if he's on king f2, and then you see king f4, this can never happen in one move, because the king can only go 1 square in each direction. Yeah, so king e3, king f4 is perfectly fine. King f2, directly to king f4, like this. It's a no-no, doesn't work. It's not allowed. Alright, so we have the final piece, and the final piece is the pawn. Pawns move up the board in a straight line, 1 square at a time. They are the only piece that may not move backwards. Pawns do have some special rules. A pawn is the only piece that captures differently than it moves, diagonally. Another unique rule is that a pawn on its starting square on the 2nd and 7th rank may choose to move up 2 squares instead of just 1. Oh, this sounds all difficult. Let's take a look at the different ways a pawn moves. Here we have 1 E. Okay, here we have E. We have the white pawn, and E takes D5. It takes diagonally. Since there's a pawn diagonally to ours, we may capture like this. Check, it's gone. Now, 2d6. Where is d6? Here it is. Let's see. Yep. If it doesn't take, it can only go directly straight line, not moving diagonal. Since the d pawn is not on its starting square, it is restricted to moving just 1 square forward at a time. 3a4. a2. Okay. Since the a pawn was sitting on its starting square, starting squares are all these for white, and here for black. Okay, so if they're on a starting square, they can choose, will I go just 1 square or will I go 2 squares? But only from the starting point. Okay, since the a pawn was sitting on its starting square, it can move up 2 squares instead of 1. Note the h pawns are blocking each other, so neither may move. There's nothing diagonal to take. They are blocking each other. They cannot move. Okay. The pawn is not on its starting square. It's already on the 4th rank. And so it may only move 1 square forward at a time. Try it for yourself. Okay, try to put it 2 or 3 in 1. It is not allowing me to do that. So it moved only 1. Here it says yes, that's okay. Pretty simple. Next we will practice capturing with the pawn. Here black's rook can be captured by the white pawn. Why can it be captured? Because it is diagonally 1 square away from the pawn. I'll take. And it worked. It's always a good thing to take your opponent's pieces, especially with a pawn. It's always a good thing to take your opponent's pieces. For a beginner, I would say yes, but from a more experienced player, I would say it's not always a good thing. But this is way too far ahead. For now, if you can take something, take it. I hope that's okay. Next variation, pawn promotion. Every pawn contains the hidden potential to transform into a queen, bishop or rook, or a knight when it reaches the other side of the board. The 8th rank for white pawn or the 1st rank for black pawn. For the white pawn, the starting square was e2, so he needs to move to the 8th rank to promote. Most often players opt to promote to a queen because the queen is the most powerful piece. Let's practice promoting a far advanced pawn to a queen. Okay, happy moment. And here I can choose. I cannot promote to another pawn because I'm already a pawn. Doesn't make sense. So you can either choose between, okay, I'd like to promote to a queen, to a rook, to a bishop, or to a knight. Here we're supposed to take the queen, and it's done. Big celebration. Just like that, a new queen enters the game, which is great news for white. All right. So with that, I think if I take a look here, we are through with the pieces, how they move. and that gives me a chance to start the video again and to see if I can remember what I learned about all the pieces, and also take a quick sip of a wonderful Radler.
And to start, it makes the most sense to observe the easiest to understand pieces. The rook, sometimes referred to as a castle by beginner chess players, moves only on the straight lines of the chessboard, meaning the rook can only move along the files and ranks, never diagonally or any other way. A starting rook could move from here to here, here to here, backwards, and to its original square. The next easiest piece to learn is the bishop. In many ways, the bishop is the polar opposite of a rook. The bishop can only move along diagonals, never straight along ranks or files. Here we see a light squared bishop in the center of the board, moving from the h1 to a8 or b1 to h7 diagonals. If we were to replace that bishop with a dark squared bishop, the bishop could only move along the dark square diagonals that you see me highlighting. The next easiest piece to learn is the most dominant and most powerful piece, the queen. The queen has the movements of both rook and bishop combined. From this central square, the queen has the ability to move in what might be described as every possible direction your heart could desire. The queen dominates the board, especially from the center, and again, is like a rook and bishop were sitting on one square together. If the queen were on a dark square, it would be the same thing, once again moving like a rook and a bishop combined from a singular point here in the middle of the board. Having looked at the rook, bishop, and queen, it's time to move on to one of the trickier pieces. The knight is one of the most awkward pieces for beginner players to understand. It doesn't follow a normal straight line path of movement, either file, rank, or diagonal, and it often can be observed as having jumped over pieces. To start, we look at the knight in the middle of the chessboard and note that how I'm drawing its movement might in some ways look like a capital L, a boot shape, or anything you want to imagine that doesn't move in an awkward straight line. The knight moves 1, 2, and over. Again, if the knight were to move another way, 1, 2, and over. However, one of the most important things to understand is that if there were a piece, either an enemy or perhaps even one of your own team pieces in the way, the knight does not capture or affect these pieces in any manner on its way to its final square. Here the knight could move to this square, just like this, but moving the knight there would not capture this pawn in any manner. You simply moved around that piece to your final square. If the knight were to go backward to this square, or to the square next to the bishop, here, once again, despite the knight looking like it travels past the bishop, it does nothing to affect this bishop's position, similar to the fact that it didn't affect the pawn's position in any way on its path to one of these two squares. Knights can move both forward, backward, side to side, in any direction as long as they follow this manner of 2 squares over and then 1 square to the side. Now we're going to learn how the king moves. Similar to the queen, the king has the ability to move to any square it wants in any direction, forward, backward, or sideways. However, unlike the queen, the king is limited to only moving 1 square at a time. The king is actually the only other piece besides the queen that controls every square directly surrounding it. However, with limited mobility, the king is not considered the most powerful piece and certainly not nearly as powerful as the royal counterpart in the queen. The king, however, is the most valuable piece and ultimately decides the game when we learn about check, checkmate, or in some cases, stalemate. But we're going to learn about that later on in the video. The last piece we're going to learn may be the smallest, but in many ways, it's the trickiest, the pawn. Pawns can only move forward and only 1 square at a time. However, pawns are actually the only piece that captures differently than it moves. In this case, the pawn in the center of the board can capture the black pawn only because it sits diagonally in front of it. However, if there were a black pawn directly in front of it, neither the white or black pawn would be capable of moving. These pawns are directly stuck in front of each other. Not only does the pawn move differently than it captures, it has another set of special circumstances. While I said the pawn only moves forward and only moves one square at a time, that rule is true except on the very first move. When we learn about setting up a chessboard, we will see that all pawns start for white along the second rank, and all pawns for black along the seventh rank. When pawns are on their first move, they have the option, not the obligation, to move 2 squares forward rather than just 1 square here. Most of the time in the beginning of the game, you will want to move pawns twice, especially if they're in the center of the board. But again, we'll learn more about strategies later on in this video and in other videos in the series. Just when you thought pawns were tricky enough and that they move differently than they capture, there are special rules depending on the turn of which they can move, I have more for you. A pawn is the only piece that has the ability to change its fate. After reaching the other side of the board and choosing to promote, a pawn can choose to become a queen, which is what most players decide to do, given that the queen is the strongest and most powerful piece. There are some cases where you might choose to become a rook. You can promote to a knight or a bishop as well. In fact, the only piece that you cannot promote to is a king and or stay a pawn yourself. A pawn must choose to become one of the 4 pieces I listed in queen, rook, knight, or bishop. A white pawn promotes when it reaches the 8th rank, and a black pawn promotes when it reaches the 1st rank. There's yet one more fun rule to learn about pawns, a move called en passant, but that's complicated enough and special enough that we're going to save it for the end of the video. Now that we've learned how the pieces move, we're going to get one step closer.
Okay, that was nice. And I think I remembered everything from my practice and my reading before we start the video. But I really like the method with the text and the video. You can either go through the video alone, you can go through the text alone, or you can use it both as a learning method like repetition. And I think it's a very good method to really take in the fundamentals here. Okay, taking a quick check at the chat. Anything going on? Nope. And yeah, it's really basic stuff, and I believe not too many people here will be interested, but we see, of course. And I think it's good to just present this material in any way. Okay, so we continue. Setting up the board. This is what a chessboard looks like at the beginning of the game. Pawns on the 2nd and 7th rank. Pawns on the 2nd rank. Pawns on the 2nd rank. Pawns on the 7th rank. The starting positions. Okay, and rooks on the A and H files. Rook on the H file. Rook on the H file. That works. Then knights on the B and G files, B and G files. Now we have the bishops on the C and F files, C and F, okay. Queen on her own color, white queen on the central light square, black queen on the central dark square. In German that would be weiße Dame weißes Feld, schwarze Dame schwarzes Feld. Okay, so king on the central square next to the queen. Yep. Have it. Got it. Remember that there should always be a light square in the lower right hand square of the chessboard. I remember when I was a child, we sometimes did the mistake that it was not the right hand square. But yeah, it happens. Okay, so this is the setup. And what I also like about Chessable is that they tell you exactly where you are. We have 57% of Chapter 1 learning the game. Each piece has a numeric value that chess players have assigned them throughout the years based on their potential strength on an open board. Because of the different ways pieces move, different pieces control different numbers of squares in an open board, which determines their value. Here is a widely agreed value distribution. A pawn is 1 point, a knight is 3 points, bishop is 3 points, rook is 5 points, and queen is 9 points. The king has no numeric value given. To lose the king is to lose the game. And basically, if you, lost 3 pawns, you lost 3 points. But if you, in return, take a knight, then it's 3 to 3, which is basically equal. But this probably comes somewhere next. Okay, in chess, check is when one king is under attack by an enemy piece. In this position, the white rook can give check to the black king. Let's practice. The right rook can give check to the black king. Let's practice. Okay. So, how can I attack the black king? If I would move to d1, it's not check because the white king is in between the white rook and the black king. So, as we learned that the rook can only move from side to side or up and down, the only way to put the black king into check is to put it on the g6 square, and there it attacks the black king. Let's see if that worked. Let's practice. I have to click on next before that. Oh, I don't even have to move myself. Check. Now the black king is obliged to move out of the check, since if white were given one more move, the king would be captured. Next. Now it's my turn. Okay, so I have to repeat that to get it into my muscle memory or brain memory. Okay, done. Check. Now the black king is obliged. Already read it. It's all good. And next variation. Checkmate ends the game. Checkmate is simply when one king is under attack in check and with nowhere to run to safety and no friends to help him out. In this position, white can give checkmate with the rook in one move. Let's try it. Ta-da! You move one rook to g8, and this symbol here, the hashtag, I say, it's the symbol for checkmate. Checkmate. The king has no squares to run to because the rook controls all squares on the 8th rank, while the white king controls each square in front of the black king. Remember, he can always go one square to each side. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So, the game is over and white wins. It's the ultimate goal in chess to put the opponent into checkmate. Now I have to work my memory. This was the correct move. This was the correct move. And here I always not try to move too fast, but I always try to think why. So in my head, when I do this, I always say, when I give check on the 8th rank, the rook controls all squares on the 8th rank. The black king is in check, and he cannot move something in front of the rook. He cannot take the rook, so he has to move out of its way. And he cannot go to a square on the 8th rank, and also not on the 7th rank, because on the 7th rank the squares are controlled by the white king. b7, c7, d7. So if I do this, instead of only moving the white rook from g7 to g8, then I actually learned something instead of only moving the rook one square to the g8 square. Okay. Need to do it 3 times. Then the program says, well done. Next variation. In this position, we can take a look at the video in between. Yeah, doesn't hurt.
closer to playing our first chess game by seeing how a chessboard is set up correctly before the first move is played. Along the way, I'm also going to talk to you about some of the finer details of learning how to read a chessboard, called chess notation, as well as make sure you don't take for granted some of the funny details that people have messed up in many chess movies and chess pop culture before. Messing up how a chessboard is set up is actually something that happens more often than you think. To avoid that pitfall, we start by looking at a chessboard and raising our right hand. Whether you're playing the white pieces, having an H1 square on your right, or the black pieces sitting across from the player playing white, you have the A8 square on your right, you'll notice that both players start with a white square or light square at their right-hand side. The white pieces should always be set up on the first and second ranks, noting the numbers on the left, while the black pieces should always be set up on the 7th and 8th ranks, again, noting the numbers on your left. The next thing that is often mistaken, again, if you're not playing online at chess.com, where we take care of all of this stuff for you, is how to set up the king and queen. Now, the king and queen obviously start in the center of the chessboard, as most people know. However, the queen has to go on her color, whether it's the white queen starting on a white square, or the black queen starting on a black square. It's super important that both queens start on a square that matches their color set. So again, in review, white on the right and queen on her color. Now you're ready to set up the rest of the chess pieces. Now that we've set up the royal couple, we're first going to establish where the bishops play directly next to the king and queen. Note how important it is that you set up the bishops correctly, because in doing so, you have both a light square diagonal bishop and a dark square diagonal bishop. And if you remember what we learned about how the pieces move, you are going to have one bishop of each color for the entire game unless a pawn promotes to a new bishop at the end of the board. After the bishops, we set up our noble steeds. The knights sit directly next to the bishops on either the G1, B1 or G8 and B8 squares. You'll note for the first time that I specifically referred to a square by the letter in which it starts with and the rank in which it sits. So again, white has knights on G1 and B1, whereas black has knights on G8 and B8 to start the game. We continue by adding a rook to H1, a rook to A1, a rook to H8, and a rook to A8. First, we mention the letter and then the number whenever we're describing chess notation, and it's important because what it means is that every square on the board has a specific name, whether that's E4, C7, or D3. Every square has a specific name that you can refer to it at any point. Our final pieces, the little guys, fill the second rank. White has 8 pawns set up along the second rank, whereas black has 8 pawns set up along the 7th rank. Taking a good look, you not only have a correctly set up chess position to start, but you didn't make any of the mistakes that Hollywood has been guilty of for years, and that you have a white square on the right and the king and queen are correctly on their starting colors. Now that we know how the pieces move and we see all of them in their starting positions, let's talk about their values. Each piece has a numeric value that chess players have assigned throughout the years based on their true potential in the open board. Specific games can sometimes change the specific strategies or potential values of a piece. However, to start a chess game, the rooks are considered worth 5 points. The bishops are considered worth 3 points. The queen is considered worth 9 points. If you remember how we set up the rook and bishops and displayed their movements in the middle of the board, and you note that the queen is essentially a rook and bishop combined, it makes sense that the queen would be a little more than double the combined value of a rook and bishop. The knights are also considered worth 3, along with the bishop. In this case, the value of the knight and bishop is one of the debates as old as time in chess, specifically because they move so different from each other. The pawns are each worth 1 point each, although remember their potential for reaching the other side of the board and becoming worth much more. And finally, the king is assigned no numeric value. You could say the king is worth the entire chessboard or your entire army. Because the king cannot actually be traded for another piece, we don't assign the king a numeric value. Throughout a chess game, you will often be facing decisions. Should I trade my knight for their knight? Perhaps my bishop for their rook? But the king is not a piece that you have the option to trade. And as we learn about check, checkmate, and stalemate, the ultimate goals of a chess game, you'll understand why. Now that we've learned how the pieces move and we've seen a chessboard set up correctly, we're going to back up quickly to make sure we understand the value of each of our respective chessmen. To start, we mentioned that the pawns are only worth 1 point each. This is because pawns can only move 1 square at a time, except for those special rules we talked about, and they generally have the ability to get stuck, often by other pieces or other pawns. However, don't ever forget that while the pawn may only be worth 1, it has great potential if it reaches the other side of the board. The next piece we're going to talk about is the knight. A knight controls 8 squares when it stands in its most powerful position on one of the central squares. It can move forward and backward or side to side as we discuss. A knight is worth 3 points. A bishop controls 14 squares. However, the bishop is also worth 3 points, similar to the knight. The reason is that while the bishop does objectively control many more squares in the middle of the chessboard, the bishop is also limited by its inability to switch colors, being stuck to either a light or dark square for the entire game. A rook is worth 5 points. In the middle of the board, a rook controls 15 squares. Now, while this is only 1 square more than what a bishop controls in the middle of the board, because a rook has the ability to switch colors and arguably move on the most efficient open highways of a chessboard, those being the files and ranks, the rook is worth 2 more points. Next, we talk about the queen. The queen is worth 9 points. She controls an astounding 27 squares if and when she stands in one of the center most powerful squares of a chessboard. 9 points, you'll note, is 1 point more than both a rook and bishop combined because of the queen's ability to move like a rook and bishop, plus switch colors to be like a rook and dark squared bishop or a rook and light squared bishop. The queen is the most powerful piece you have. The king is last because the king has no numeric value. Some could say the king is worth your entire army or the entire chessboard. Even though a king controls every square directly surrounding it, similar to what we said the queen does, it is limited in that it can only move 1 square at a time, as we previously learned. However, we are unable to place a numeric value to the king because unlike every other piece, which has the ability to trade itself if you perceive greater value in return, the king is the one piece you are never allowed to sacrifice, never allowed to do away with. The kings will be the final pieces left standing for both armies at the end of the game, no matter the result. Congratulations for making it this far. You now know the basic terminology, how the pieces move in their values, as well as how to set up a chessboard better than most Hollywood producers. Now let's start learning some of the other more advanced rules and the key initial strategies to help you play and win chess games. We start with what is check. Check is any time you attack the enemy king, or you might be in check if your king is being attacked. In this position, white can move the rook forward on a straight line, as you learned, to check the enemy black king. To quickly show it again, if the black king moves and white comes forward, once again, white has the option to check the enemy black king where it stands. When a king is in check, it has no choice but to run to safety. And if eventually a king runs out of safe squares, this is known as checkmate. The king is check where it stands, i.e. attacked. It can't stay anywhere along the 8th rank, as you see the board flashes, telling you, hey, you're still in check. It also is not allowed to move forward, as that would put the king under fire by the white king. This position represents a very, very basic checkmate, where the rook traps the king on the edge of the board and the king has no ability to run to safety and no friends to help him out. Now that you've seen what check is, and even your first checkmate, we're going to talk about the 3 different ways that one can get out of check.
Okay, that was a really nice explanation, and the videos get longer, more explanations. So let's continue. First, take a quick look if something happened here. No, it's all good, and we continue with the course. So next is escaping check, and we go directly to it. So in this position, black is in check by the white rook. However, there are many ways to escape the check. Generally, there are 3 ways to escape check. Capture the checking piece. Where do we have it here? Okay, here we have the white rook giving check to the black king. And I can capture the checking piece by taking the white rook with the bishop on c4. c4 takes a6. Okay, blocking the check with a friendly piece. Blocking would mean I would go with the knight from c8 to a7. So the white rook cannot attack the king directly here. And moving the king away from the check, there's only one square. a7 it's not the right one because it's still in check. b7 is also not correct because it's would be in check from the king, which is not possible basically, but that's fine. And so the only square left is b8. b8 is not attacked from a white piece on the board. In this position, black has all 3 of these options. Usually it is best to capture the checking piece if possible. 1, we did that. Here the bishop can capture the checking rook. Badam. Okay. So the other options to escape the check were knight a7, and it not only blocks the check from the white rook, but it also gives check to the white king. So he has to move away or take away the attacker or put something in between. And when a knight gives check, there's no way to put something in between. Okay. So, and king b8, we talked about it, simply moving the king away from the check. All good. Black to play. Well, I tried with this move. Okay. In this position, black is in check by the white rook. Capture, capture, capture. With the rook eliminated, the danger is gone and the game continues. So this is something in Chessable, which is quite interesting. It was an okay move that I did, yeah, but it saw a better move. And that's why it sometimes takes a correct move as a wrong move. Yeah, but there's also the option to give it as an alternative move. I think that's the correct wording here. And then it's not taken as a wrong move, but as an alternative move. And without getting an error, you are free to give it another try. And this would have been, of course, bishop takes a6, because that's the best move in this situation here. Okay, black to play. Take. And here again, I can only take without thinking, or I can talk to myself again. If I talk to myself, I would say, well, what's happening on the board? We have a white rook. The white rook is checking my king. There are 3 options. One is take with the bishop, or take in general. The other one is putting a friendly piece into the checking piece way, which would be knight to b7, or simply moving the king out of the check, in this case to b8. If I do it like this, I really learn. If I just move, I also learn, but maybe not so deeply. Okay. So quiz 2 out of 3, so I do it again. Now I have it 3 times done, and the program says, well, you've gotten it. Okay, next variation. Oh my goodness, many pieces. What's happening? Black's move 3 knight f7, f6, sorry. Black's move 3 knight f6 here is a big mistake. We are at the scholar's mate. It's a famous mate which every new player likes to learn, and especially children like to play, because it's always a big satisfaction if you can put someone into the scholar's mate. White is ready to deliver the game-winning checkmate already on move 4. Well, before I explain everything, I think we just go to Danny's video. He will explain it way better, and it's maybe nicer to watch.
From our previous position, we've kept the white king and rook, but we've given black some more help. Here we have a bishop and knight joining the black monarch on the board. In this position, black has 3 ways to get out of check. Can you see all of them? The first one is for the bishop on c4 to capture the checking piece on a6. Often, if you can capture a piece that's checking your king, it's the best way to get out of check. The second move black can play is knight to a7. This actually blocks the white rook from checking the black king, and in fact, puts the white king in check along with it. The last option is to move the king to safety, king to b8. This puts the king on a safe square away from the rook's evil gaze on the a-file. In review, the 3 ways to get out of check are to capture, block, or move to safety. You've learned what check is, you've even seen checkmate, and you've learned the 3 ways you can get out of check. But before we move on from this super important topic, I want to show 2 of the most basic checkmates that can happen in the beginning of a chess game. These are 2 checkmates that every player should know. The first one is called the scholar's mate. White often starts with the move e4, as this is a great move to move the pawn forward and attack the center. Black follows suit, and I'm going to quickly show one of the most aggressive things white can do by bringing the queen out to attack a couple of pawns. We're going to learn in later videos that this may not be the best idea, but to illustrate checkmate, after black defends the central pawn, white can bring the bishop out to c4, and if a mistake like knight f6 is made, white can checkmate the black king in just 4 moves. That's right, the queen slides behind the attacking knight and checkmates the black king where he stands. Let's check for our 3 ways to get out of check just to make sure that Danny hasn't gone crazy and that this is checkmate. Can the king capture the checking piece? The answer is no, because the queen is protected. Can the king move to safety? The answer is no, because the queen has her gaze there as well. Is there any way to interpose a piece in between the queen checking the king? I think the answer there is obviously no. And the rules of chess state that you cannot capture your own pieces in order to run to safety. Once again, we see checkmate in just 4 moves, and you have learned your first opening trap called the scholar's mate. The next checkmate to learn is the fastest way to lose a chess game. Did you know that only white can lose in just 2 moves? It starts if white makes this horrible move, pawn to f3. This is not a good move for many reasons we're going to learn in later videos of this Everything You Need to Know About Chess series. But let's say black doesn't play a bad move and instead they attack the center. If white plays one more terrible pawn push, white has actually created the biggest possible weakness for their king in the beginning of the game. The dark square diagonal has no protection, and if black sees the move queen to h4 check, this is checkmate. Checking once again, can we capture the queen? Pawns don't capture sideways or forward. Can we move the pawns backward? Pawns don't go backward. No other piece can legally interpose because these pieces don't move that way. And once again, the king is unable to move to safety. This is checkmate in just 2 moves, and it is often called the fool's mate because only a fool would play these 2 moves for white to start a chess game. Now that we've learned what check is, checkmate, and seen some of the most basic, most important examples of how you can win and lose a chess game quickly. Let's talk about the rule stalemate. Now, stalemate is one of the most confusing rules about chess because it's very close to checkmate, but it is not checkmate at all, and in fact is often a big failure for one of the two players. Stalemate is when you trap the enemy king. They have no legal moves for the king or any piece, but they're not actually in check. Here's an example. In this position, black has several ways to checkmate the white king. The black queen could move to b1, checking the king, and noting that similar to our example earlier with the white king and rook, the king is trapped on the first rank here because of the black counterpart. The queen could move all the way to g2, once again, checking the white king, and the king is dead where he stands because he's not allowed to capture a queen that is protected. However, more often than not, beginners, nervous to play a piece too close to the white king, might actually play the move queen to f2. This is stalemate, and instead of getting a full point for black, you would get a half a point, splitting the game with your opponent. In this position, the white king is indeed trapped. Moving to any of these squares would not be allowed because it would immediately place the king in check. However, because the white king is not actually attacked, instead of being checkmated, the white king is stalemated. Once again, stalemate, especially if you're the side winning, is not a good result. You want to check a king and make sure that it's trapped, not trap a king, leaving it no legal moves without an actual attack being made. Our final example to help learn what stalemate is one where we can actually confuse a stalemate where it is not actually on the board. In this position, if white were to play the move queen to f6, the black king itself is actually stalemated. The king has no legal moves that would not put it into check. However, black has another piece. That pawn over here can still legally move up the chessboard. Moving the pawn forward either one or two squares allows white to fix the mistake of the previous move and deliver a forcing move, and in this case, checkmate. The lesson again is that even though a king can be trapped, and technically the king himself might be stalemated, if there are other pieces in the army that can still legally move, it is not a stalemate. And in this case, white could use that rule to its advantage for delivering checkmate instead of a stalemate. Stick with us. You're almost there.
Okay, so fun part is I remember in the first or second stream that we had when Jurica was commentating one of my classical games from the Chess Dojo tournament. And in the end, like 20 minutes or so, he forgot to turn on his mic again after he went for a quick break. And this just happened to me. I forgot to turn on the mic, although I have a microphone that lights up, like with the very interesting RGB color if I'm online with the microphone on or if it's off. So I didn't notice that. I'm very sorry. What I wanted to let you know is for the Fool's Mate and the Scholar's Mate, we have a very nice animation on our channel. And you're of course invited to take a look at it. And I'll put the links to those videos that we have into the video description. Yeah, please check it out and let us know what you think of it, of course. One part is the Scholar's Mate. It's really nicely done because we made it out of the position of a 6-year-old, and he describes what he thinks while playing these moves on the Scholar's Mate, and then we directly go to the view of a grandmaster, and it's very interesting to see the different ideas in the heads of those different level players, of course. Okay, so now we're going to the test mate in 1. I'm still checking what's going on here. Okay, it's all good, and we start right away. So here, what do I need to do? It's test mate in 1. How can white deliver checkmate in 1 move in this position? So I see that the squares b7 or a7, b7 and c7 are occupied more or less by the white king. The white king can move always 1 square into each direction. These are taken. So I only need to take care of the squares on the 8 rank. I can do this with the rook by moving the rook to g8. I take care that I'm attacking all squares on the 8th rank, which basically then is checkmate, because the black king cannot take the rook. It cannot move a friendly piece between the rook and my king, and I cannot move out of the check. So that is probably the correct idea. Congratulations. Be careful, it may be tempting to move the rook close to the king with rook b7. This would end the game in stalemate, as the king has nowhere to run, but it's also not under attack, what we just learned a move before. Okay, so here we have the special rule en passant. Black's move 1h5. Okay, en passant, French for in passing, is a special rule enabling one pawn to capture another in unique circumstances. When one pawn moves up 2 squares on its first move and lands side by side with one of your pawns, you can capture it as if it had only moved up 1 square. Note, the player using en passant may only execute it on the very next turn the enemy pawn has moved. The option expires for all future moves. Let's see how it looks in practice. Black's move was 1h5, so it moved from h7 to a5. We have the pawn on g5, and now white's move is g takes h6. Here we have the black pawn moving from f7 to f5. Exactly the same thing happens, but only this time to the other side. G takes f6 would be another example of en passant from the starting position. Here again, I could learn or I can move. So here I just explained it, so I just move. En passant, en passant, en passant. And next variation. Special rule, castling, kingside. Okay, but before that, we take a look at Danny's explanation again for en passant.
The last two things we're going to learn in this video are the special, sometimes secret rules of chess that many beginners never get taught. Unfortunately, that means they can often be shocked when they first see these things happen in a chess game. We are talking about the rules of en passant and castling. To start, we see an odd position where en passant is possible for both players when the right move is played. How did we get here? This may not be an opening you get taught, but we're going to show how the position occurs legally on the board if both sides were to run their g and b pawns respectively, and then the d pawn to d5 for white. In this position, en passant could occur if either the h or f pawn were to try to move 2 squares by the white pawn on g5. What is en passant? This pawn moves past the g pawn in passing, i.e. French for in passing is en passant, and white has the ability, the option, not the obligation, to capture that pawn as if it has moved only 1 square. The amount of times people freak out the first time they see this might not shock you. Again, if black were to move the f pawn, white would have the ability to capture that f5 pawn as if it had moved only 1 square. These two captures are only possible because the black pawns tried to move directly past the white pawn on g5, hence the term in passing, en passant. If these pawns had moved only 1 square and then tried to move past, because the pawns at one point had the option to capture each other and they chose not to, en passant no longer exists. The fastest way to see that is that after the move d5, if black were to play pawn to e5, en passant here is not a move that the chess.com server will allow because it is illegal. However, if this pawn were to move 2 squares past the d pawn here, white could indeed capture this pawn en passant. Let's show an example of black playing en passant if instead of the last move d5, white had pushed either a4 or c4. In both cases, the black b-pawn could capture the pawn en passant. Once again, en passant. In summary, en passant can occur if you have a pawn on the 5th rank as white or the 4th rank as black, and your opponent chooses to move a pawn not 1, but 2 squares by you on their first move, you can capture en passant. If you choose not to capture with any other move, on the next turn, you are no longer allowed to capture en passant. It must be captured on the moment it occurs on the board. En passant is a tricky move, and again, something you should read one of our basic explainer articles to make sure you understand all the details. The second rule, as promised, that can be special and sometimes...
Okay, thank you, Danny. This was a nice explanation with more examples, and I think you got the hang of it. Really, really nice. And the more as you guys noticed from the start, I really hadn't opened the course before I started the stream. So this is all new to me, not the stuff he's teaching, but the way they're presenting it. And basically I'm really in awe of how well Danny is presenting the material. Yeah, it's very, very nice how he does it. Okay, and with that we are going into the next part of this chapter, and that was castling on the king side. Okay, this is a special rule, castling. Another special rule we need to learn is castling. Castling is an excellent way to make your king safer. To castle, the king moves 2 squares to the side and the rook swings across the king, landing next to it on the other side. This can only be done when all squares between the rook and the king are unoccupied, and if neither the king nor rook have moved yet during the game. Therefore, castling may only occur once per game for each color. Okay, castling can take place on the king side, as in white's case here, or the queen side of the board. Also note, you may not castle the king out of check or through check. Let's castle the white king. By the way, when we started this course, I said, okay, the video length presented in this course is 1 hour 50, and with a little text on the side. The stream for the whole course, will take like 2.5 hours. We are now almost close to, let me check again. We are now at 1:41, and we are only in the first chapter of the course. So this is kind of really, really interesting how much information Chessable is giving away for free here. It's like a really good course, and it's all for free. And just big thumbs up and bowing into your direction, Chessable, for giving this all away for free. Okay, so let's go into the exercises. Great, white had castled king side. Okay, just like this. First you move the king to g1, and only after that you touch the rook. It's always king first and then the rook. White to play. Again, I'm not allowed to castle if I'm in check. If one of the squares in between would put me into check, or if I have to, or if one of the pieces already had moved before, then I'm not allowed to castle. Okay, so now go. Yup, worked, and it worked. Congratulations, you completed your daily goal, 1 hour. Great job, keep it up. That's what I put in Chessable overall. So whenever I do whatever course, it tracks my time, and once I completed my daily hour, I'm greeted by a congratulations part. And this is so great about Chessable too, because it has this gamification aspect to it. It's really nice. Okay, so next variation. Now we have the queenside castling. It's pretty much the same, just to the queen side. You can also castle the king to safety on the queen side of the board, though it's little less common. Once again, the king moves over 2 and the rook swings across. Let's see. Badam. Very good. The castled king is normally safe behind the cover of pawns and will thank you for it. Well, remember the starting position. The starting position puts all the pawns on the 2nd rank or the 7th rank for black. Here again, memory. First you move the king and then the rook. Very good. The castled king is normally safe behind the cover of pawns and will thank you for it. Next variation. Okay. So, when it's illegal to castle, oh, I just said that. You cannot castle through or into check. As a result, white cannot immediately castle in either direction. Why? Because here we have the g1 square. It's in check, basically, from the black bishop. And the other side, here we have the rook on d8, which occupies or would occupy the d1 square. So the white king has to move through check, and that is not allowed. Okay. And remember, it's illegal to castle if either your king or the castling rook has already moved during the game. Okay, so next variation. Castling early. What do we have here? Black's move is knight to f6 from the g8 square. My move now as white is short castling. White has a good position to start the game now that the king is castled to safety. Okay, I castle. I always think, well, I can castle, but it's a program that tells me what to do. White to play now. Okay, castling is fine, and you see the experience points you get when you do a correct move. It's also part of the gamification in Chessable. Okay, good. Then we are done with the learnings in chapter 1, learning the game. Yeah, we learned a lot of stuff. Take a look. Yeah, so if I think I'm a beginner, I have never known the rules that we just covered. This is already a lot of stuff. Yeah, and we go into the review variations after we took a look at Danny letting us know in his video what his explanations are for castling.
Times tricky for beginners is the rule of castling. Castling is the only move in which you can move 2 pieces at once. Castling can only occur when your king and rooks are on their first and starting positions. You can castle both to the king side, which in chess is a term defined for the area of the board where the king is closest to, or you can castle queen side, which again is referred to because it is the area of the board closest to where the queen starts the game. To demonstrate, we're going to quickly clear the board and show what it might look like if none of the pieces were in the way. In this position, white could castle king side, where black could actually castle queen side. In both cases, castling occurs by moving the king 2 squares and the rook completing the castle next to it. This would be the final position for white to castle kingside. This would be the final position for black to castle queenside. You'll note that there is a difference in terms of the space next to the black and white king each respectively. However, castling was done correctly. Once again, castling goes with the king first. You move the king 2 squares, and the rook completes the castle by hopping over the white king. And it is the same on the other side of the board, even though it leaves 1 more square available to black in the final position. Keeping the pieces off the board to illustrate some of the important details that go with the rule of castling. Here we see a position where the white king is in check, attacked by the black bishop, and the black king, while not in check, is actually under the gaze of the white bishop on g5. What does this mean? It means that neither player can castle the way that I just showed you in the previous position. Yes, you can only castle if your king and rook are on their starting position. However, you are not allowed to castle if your king is in check. He must first find safety. And you are not allowed to castle if your king were to pass through a square that would be legally defined as check because an enemy piece has their attacking gaze on said square. In summary, the rules of castling. Both king and rook must be on their starting positions and have never moved from those positions. You cannot be in check, and you cannot pass through check in order to complete the castled position. As long as all three of those criteria are in place, you can castle and move 2 pieces on 1 turn. To bring our video to a close, we're going to show a real-life example of what it's like to get castled. Both sides quickly bring their pieces into the middle of the board. White gets castled as early as the 4th move, putting the king on e1 to g1 and the white rook following suit to the f1 square. Black then has the option of doing the same just a couple moves later by moving the king from e8 to g8, and we see the black rook hopping from h8 to f8, completing the castled position. This opening is often called the 4 knights, a variation of the Gioco piano. There are many chess openings with many names, and we're going to continue to learn about those in our next video of the Everything You Need to Know About Chess series. But until then, you should be congratulating yourself. You know basic terminology, how to move the pieces and what they're worth. You know how to set up a chessboard, and you are ready with the basic understanding of checkmate, stalemate, and all those little tactics they're going to set up how to play and win your first chess games. So what are you waiting for? Get started today.
Nice. Thank you, Danny, again. And now you saw also the difference between the video and the text. So in Chessable, there's always the possibility just to buy the text parts, and it costs a little more to buy the video parts. Some courses have extensive video, like 15, 16, 20 hours additionally, and I always try to buy the video with it just for the repetition part, and it's always nice because I feel I get a special relationship with my teacher. In this case, I am Danny Rensch here. Okay, so before we are closing the Learning the Game chapter, we still have 3 review sections left, and we are going straight to it. Review 1. The knight is the trickiest piece because it moves in the most unique way. I know it appears tricky because all of a sudden the board is full of pieces, but you do your best in this position. What is the best knight move white has? Okay, we have 2 white knights. We have to check every move. Okay, so the most important thing would be, can I checkmate? And I see that I cannot. I put an L move to g5, but I cannot put it into check. e5 doesn't put the white king into check, and same goes for the knight on c4. I cannot put it into check. Then the next thing is, can I take something? And here I know that the white knight has a value of 3 and the black queen has a value of 9. So it might be a very good choice to take the black queen, and that is my first choice. And I'm kind of lazy today, which is a very bad thing in chess. I don't check the other options, I just take, and I really believe it's the best move. It says, yep. The knight hops forward to capture the enemy queen. It's true, black can recapture our knight with their pawn, but we don't mind because the queen is 9 worth, much more than the knight with the 3. Yep, first review done. Next one. How can white checkmate the black king in this early stage of the game? Okay, here we basically have a repetition of the scholar's mate, I think. And yeah, it is queen to checkmate on f7 because of all the rules that we just have. So it's check. How can we prevent check? We can take the attacker. We cannot do this because the bishop is helping our queen here. Then we can move out of the check. We cannot do this. And the last thing is to put a piece into the way. And as it's an adjacent square, no way to put something in between. So it's checkmate on f7. Let's see if all was correct. Yes, it was. Scholar's mate. The king has nowhere to run away. Blocking the check is impossible, and the queen cannot be captured because the bishop is defending her. This is an example of support mate, which we will learn about in the tactics chapter. All right. Next and final one, review 3, is the king is safest away from the center behind a shelter of pawns. Do you remember the special rule of castling? Yes, I do. White to play, so I need to check. Did I move the king or the rook before? I don't know because the notation is not given, but I assume as this is a course for beginners, they haven't moved before. So that is good. I don't move through a check from an opponent's piece. I'm not in check myself, so I can just simple castle. And congratulations, it was correct. Nice work. You've cancelled kingside, your king is safe, and you're ready to rumble. Hard work pays off. You finished learning the chapter. Super, super nice. That took us only 2 hours. And we learned quite a lot. Basically all the rules you need to play chess. Continue. Okay, I'd like to go back to the course. Click on it. And I see now we have new to Chessable. We got it. Introduction, we got it. And learning the game with 37 variations is also done. We took a look at 100% of the video given for the chapters, so we're all good. We still have open the opening, tactics and strategy, the end game, and bringing it all together. And I think this is best to do this in another stream, because it's quite late here now, and what I don't like to miss is take a look at this blue bar on top. You are next due here for spaced repetition in 2 hours and 29 minutes, unless you learn something else. So what does it mean? We had variations given and we had to move pieces. We got it all correct, but maybe I forget it because it was only short-term memory. So Chessable will present me those variations again to check if I am still able to do the correct moves. Yeah, and again, spaced repetition means if I know something straight away, it will be given to me again at a very late stage because I know it already. If I don't know something, then it will keep on to present the material to me very fast and very early, so that my short-term memory will finally be put into a long-term memory state. Yeah, so there's, I think, scientific research that if you find something really boring, it needs 7 times to be in the short-term memory before it gets into long-term memory. If something is really, really important to you, you only have to listen to it once or see it once, and it's immediately in the long-term memory. Yeah, and for me, my best learning technique is always repetition, and so I'm very thankful for the spaced repetition here. Okay. So with this, I'd like to close the stream for today, or end the stream for today. And yeah, please subscribe to the channel if you're interested to learn more. And you will be notified when we will continue with this course on Chessable. And yeah, just to sum it up, presented in a really nice way, material was top-notch, and I can only recommend the course to everyone. I'm not paid, I'm not a relative of somebody working for Chessable, and I don't benefit in any way. It's just my honest opinion from what you just saw when we went through the course. And of course, you are allowed to build your own opinion. Nice. With this, yeah, I wish you a very good night. And of course, see you later. Bye bye.